Hello, travelers and tourists. My name is Mark, and I am the local disaster tour guide. That's right, I am a storyteller who's trying to find as many ways as possible to make the deities proud of me, so maybe my dice will roll well. Welcome to a journey through the fantastic world of TTRPGs like Pathfinder and Starfinder, and welcome to a special episode where I'm going to be interviewing a new author who is getting ready to release a new product on Pathfinder Infinite called Divinity Unbound Paths of Faith. So, welcome to the channel. This is Nick Potter. Nick, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Nick. I'm Nicholas on all of my releases just because I figured it's a bit more professional. I'm also Zortberg on some various places. You might have seen me around there. I have been playing RPGs for a long time, a little over 10 years now. So, I'm a 40-year original veteran, but I've got some experience. Started with Pathfinder 1E and then sort of bounced around a bit, played 5E for a few years, which I grew tired of, but I did meet my wife while I was playing it, so that's pretty cool. Um, then I transitioned over to Pathfinder 2E because the adventures are really good, and it turns out I like the system a lot too. Been running Age of Ashes for like 3 years because of it's been extended a bit because I've added some content and also because of scheduling. You know, I had to take breaks. Um,
If your players don't derail your campaign, are you really running a campaign?
right. Generally, they're pretty good at staying on track, but sometimes I've got to improvise a little bit.
Okay, so I know that, or as I understand, I believe this product is going to be your first product through Pathfinder Infinite. But as I understand, you've done some writing and you've got some material out there for Pathfinder 2E through some other venues. So can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what some of your experience is with Pathfinder?
Yeah, so I do have one thing on Pathfinder Infinite other than this, which is a short story. So this is my first mechanical release. But other than that, I got started with a blog that I just was like, I need to make content. I have to start making content if I want to actually write for these things. So I would do a Monday, Wednesday, Friday release where there was some analysis, some mechanical content, and some like adventure ideas and whatnot. Did that for a while, and then I learned about the RPG Superstar contest that they did 2 years ago, I think now, because they had some delays in getting everything finished. It's fine. I understand. Uh, had some winning monsters in that. Felt pretty good about that. So I started looking for more work. And I've done some Dungeons and Dragons adventures that I write for another person.
Mhm.
And I've been working on this project for a little while and finally got it to a point where it was ready to release.
Awesome. Well, it is. I am excited to have another RPG Superstar winner on my channel. I Fans of the channel know that I've got some winning monsters in there. You wrote for your monsters were in the second contest, Strange and Unusual, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, so I've been researching them, and I want to pick your brain just a little bit for the fun of it. You had three. One of them I can't
Yeah.
pronounce because it's Zweihander. It's that German
Yeah,
word that I
yeah.
always.
It was originally okay. So I've got three. They are in alphabetical order. The furnace newt. No, no, sorry. The Bloodsport Remnant, the furnace newt, and then the Swiveblade Guardian. Originally, that was Twin Blade
Hmm.
when I submitted it. But I saw. I didn't ask them directly, but I saw a discussion in there where the Roll for Comic people were talking about. They did that just for the purposes of having another Z monster, so there wasn't just one in that section. And I was like, oh yeah, that's fine. I don't mind.
Okay.
Um, and it was actually really funny. I had no idea this contest was even a thing. Like in the past, I had never heard of it, but I learned of it on the day the contest was ending, and I was like, you know, whatever.
Hmm.
I've written papers at the last minute for school and done well on them. I can try this. I was talking to my wife. I was like, I need a brainstorm. I need to figure things out.
Hmm.
And strange and unusual, I was having kind of a bit of trouble with that until we thought about, the fact that it could be unusual mechanics things that are, because I'm very much, I'm a creative writer, but I love the way tabletop RPGs have mechanics that sort of inform the story.
Mm-hmm.
So, just for the three that I had, a lizard that gets bigger every time fire is used near it and makes fire stronger. And if
Mm-hmm.
too much fire is used near it, it explodes. I'd never seen anything like that. That seemed unusual. Um, and, the other two, sort of an undead wrestler
Mm-hmm.
ghost who just made. I actually, there was a mechanic in there that I used for it called hype.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a much weaker version of the final product because I had in mind the idea that it would just go on forever. It would keep stacking a status bonus until the fight was over. Because I was like, that'd be fun. The fight starts, and maybe this thing's a strong enemy and it's hurting you a lot, but then at the end, your last few people who are left standing are just critting left and right. It seemed like a lot of fun. And then those are the two that I was the most proud of. I worked like I had the strongest ideas for them, and they wound up getting caught. And then for the Zweiblade Guardian, I was like, I kind of like the mechanics here, but I don't really know how to make them work that well. It was kind of rushing at the end. Sure, I'll get it in. Maybe it'll do all right. It got the silver prize. So,
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
I
Uh,
do better when I'm not as inspired.
uh, I will tell you, when I did RPG Superstar 2020, I was a platinum prize winner, but I had another monster that did not win at all, and that's the one I was originally proud of.
Right, yeah.
So I know exactly how you feel. Um, but no, I really enjoy the Furnace Newt and the Bloodsport Remnant for the abilities that you baked into them. The one you were talking about, that was the one I was going to pick your brain on. The Furnace Newt, when you cast fire spells, it grows and grows and grows until it pops.
Yeah.
And I know my players, so I know how the first encounter with the Furnace Newt is going to end. And to any of my players who watch this video, I'm not sorry. But
Yeah, no, I generally try to avoid monsters. Just it's just a cute little thing,
mhm,
unless I can give them something interesting, right?
mhm.
Like even just the idea, kind of in my mind. I think I had this even in the lore write up. The idea that like young groups of mages would like keep one around for fighting
Mhm.
purposes, but they'd have to be careful, to, like also cast cold spells so it doesn't explode on them. And so I sort of had in mind the idea of the players throwing fire spells back at them, and they're like, "Oh no!"
The uh,
So
the
yeah,
other compliment I want to give you is on the Bloodsport Remnant. It has an ability called No Cell, where when it takes a critical hit, it can play it off like it was nothing and try to intimidate the opponents. That feels like it should already be in the game. Like, just that ability feels like it should be a skill feat, and I thought that was so cool when I read it. So I'm probably adapting that to like player content for my home games. Um,
yeah. The Bloodsport Remnant was a little bit awkward because Strange and Unusual, the contest happened, and then the Book of the Dead was released, and they had an undead wrestler in there. And I was like, oh, well, I did it first, so
mhm.
at least I know I wasn't copying anyone.
Okay, so I guess I should actually get to the reason that you came on this channel, but
Right.
getting to talk shop with another RPG Superstar winner was just I couldn't pass the opportunity. So Nick, tell us about the product you have coming out. When is it coming out? What is it? And what can we expect?
Right. So it's Divinity Unbound Paths of Faith. Paths of Faith being the sort of subtitle to it. It's the first, essentially, in a line of a bunch of Divinity Unbound products, which will be focusing on the divine elements of the setting. Primarily, there's a good bit of conversion from first edition in there. There was the Deific Obedience feat in first edition, which I made a skill feat, and I've tweaked it a bit. Whereas in the first edition, it was once a day for a little minor bonus that you had to do. Here, it's sort of a thing that you can do once a month for a more significant bonus. So it sort of makes you think about how to deploy it and when to use it. And there are conversions of 3 prestige classes that were tied to it from the Inner Sea Gods book. There's the Evangelist, which is very skill focused, primarily like diplomacy and religion. Exalted, which is focused on magic, and the Sentinel, which was already an archetype in 2e, so I had to rename it. I went with the Crusader, and that's focused on martial combat. And each of them will see further support in each upcoming book. I'm going to be focusing on sort of expanding the play options for them to make them feel more like you're a crusader of your god or an exalted of your god, whereas these are sort of the basic options to sort of lay the groundwork. And I've also got one sort of original archetype that I've written, which is the Heraldic Hopeful, focused on sort of becoming more and more of a divine being, becoming a celestial yourself, and eventually maybe becoming your own deity's herald.
That's fun.
Yeah, the dedication actually was the first thing I wrote for this, though it wasn't specifically written for this book at first. It was actually, I think, shortly after the Book of the Dead came out, and they had the basic and advanced undead benefits.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I really like celestial stuff. Let's try it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of just shelved that for a bit until it was, it evolved into this. And then, it also includes some optional rules for, involving deities more directly in the campaign, for getting them more directly mechanically involved.
Mm-hmm.
It has 3 sample NPCs, each of them representing one of the 3 converted archetypes, the Evangelist, Exalted, and Crusader. And there's a short story about each of those, sort of showcasing, what they can do in a narrative sense.
Okay.
And the release is July 1st, U.S. time zone release.
And that will be through Pathfinder Infinite, correct?
Yes, it'll be on Pathfinder Infinite, and it will have Foundry support, thanks to Eldritch Osiris Games.
Awesome.
And also, because I recently learned it's actually pretty easy to do Path Builder support, I went ahead and did that as well. So it'll have that. So you can make your characters in Path Builder if you want.
Awesome. All right. So the next question I have is, why was this content something that appealed to you? Like, why was this the first thing you decided to write?
Yeah, I mean, so at the most basic level, I really like divine characters in these sorts of D&D-esque settings.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that D&D popularized and Pathfinder obviously spun off of. The Paladin has been like my favorite class since 3.5. Honestly, I think I actually liked Paladins going back to Warcraft 3. I think that's where I started liking them. They were my favorite hero unit. In World of Warcraft, I always played a priest or a paladin.
Paladin main here too.
Yeah. But I was just thinking about heralds as well. The deities' heralds in Pathfinder, because I played Alcat's Wrath of the Righteous, and I thought Iomede's herald was pretty cool. And the fact that, I guess it's spoilers, but it's also Pathfinder canon that Queen Gallifrey canonically becomes Iomede's herald was really cool, because it's like a recent memory example of a moral's ascension to not quite, being a demigod, but to being a really powerful celestial being. And I love that, right? So I started looking into them because I wanted to see where they fit into the cosmology of the setting and all. And I really liked what I saw, how they're not the deity's strongest servants necessarily. There's exceptions, like Rovagug's herald is the Tarask, which is devastating. Mm-hmm. But the idea is that they're usually the strongest servants that a deity has that their mortal followers can summon with a spell. In first edition specifically, they were CR 15 creatures with 18 or fewer hit dice, which meant they could be summoned by a greater planar ally, which was a high-level spell. And I really like mechanics and narrative coming together like that. Mm-hmm. So it's great. And then I looked into, are they N2E? And one is, it's Norgorber's Herald, the Stabbing Beast. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, it wasn't converted with the same idea in mind. It was level 15 to match its challenge rating from 1E. But a level 20 creature is possible to summon in Pathfinder 2E with the Planar Ally Ritual. So I started converting the Heralds as level 20 creatures. In the end, I got 2 converted, and then I was like, this is cool and all, but if I wanted to do everything that I wanted to do in one book, it would take me so long to get done, and I would lose interest. I would run out of steam. I would no. I'm going to do smaller releases, lower price tag, just get them out there so that I can keep my momentum going.
Mm-hmm.
So we start with this basic one where I put out some archetypes that I think are really cool, that are faithful conversions
Mm-hmm.
with upgrades to Pathfinder 2e standards,
Mm-hmm.
and some cool original ideas of my own. And then I can work on the further products, which I'm most excited about because they're just going to build on what I've done here. And so I've got, a lot in the pipeline that I can get done. I think it's so. This being my first product is one that gives me a foot in the door to get a whole lot more done.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right. So, going a little bit further in depth, for this product specifically, what was your favorite thing that you got to develop and why?
It would probably be the heraldic hopeful archetype because, like, the conversion work is fun. I
Mm-hmm.
enjoy doing that. I've done some freelance conversion work like for someone's private game, even where they were like, "I like this campaign setting for 5e, but I want it for Pathfinder. Can you do it?" Yeah, that's
Mm-hmm.
fun. But like, I love you know making my own thing.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when I'm working within something that's established. Like I love writing in Galarian because I don't
Mm-hmm.
have to do the world building. I don't have all that pressure on me. I
Mm-hmm.
have a cool setting and I can do cool things in it. So, I thought about how much I liked these various ideas, the heralds, the possibility of ascension. And, ascension is a big thing in Pathfinder
Mm-hmm.
anyway. Caden, Kalian, Norgorber, and Iomade all did with the
Mm-hmm.
Starstone. And that's all cool. So, blending together the narrative side of things and setting implications with these like satisfying and fun abilities to take his feats.
Mm-hmm.
Like every feat that I wrote for this archetype is one that I would be okay taking in place of a class feat.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people play with free archetype, but I tend to want to design so that people who aren't would still want to use my thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was just a whole lot of fun for me to come up with.
All right. And the flip side of this question, um, what part of this product was the hardest for you? Like, what was the most difficult thing that you had to develop or convert, and why was it the most difficult?
So, in terms of mechanical sides of things, I really just had a whole lot of trouble deciding on how I wanted the deific obedience skill feat to work. Because, like I said, in 1E, it was kind of just like this very baseline thing where each of the prestige classes that I converted had all sorts of like their own little tiny
Mm-hmm.
scaling and stacking bonuses as you got higher in level, depending on the deity that you had and whatnot. And that was a whole lot. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was trying to think of ways that I could, maybe I just introduce the feat here and maybe give like a little basic benefit. I've done that with at least one of the archetype feats, where there's a basic benefit to taking the Crusader feat that gives you a stance and your
Mm-hmm.
deity's favorite weapon. But in each of the following books, I'm gonna have like extra benefits for if you're a follower of this deity and you have the feat, right? I thought
Mm-hmm.
about doing that, but that's also just sort of very adventurer focused. And
Mm-hmm.
since this is a low level skill feat, I was like, let's make it more kind of broadly applicable where you'd see even NPCs maybe doing this, right? Taking this, having this ability, because it's sort of just knowing how to do a special ritual.
Mm-hmm.
So in the end, I essentially decided on tying it to each deity's blessings or boons and curses that they have listed. Some of them don't have, but most of the big ones will have
Mm-hmm.
minor, major, and like or moderate and major boons and curses.
Mm-hmm.
So doing your deific obedience, depending on your skill level, your training in religion, can give you, even potentially legendary, getting your major boon from your deity, so that you can prepare for a big assault on an enemy base or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that wound up, it took me a long time to get there.
Mm-hmm.
I was agonizing over that. And then eventually I was like, oh, I can just actually keep it simple.
Mm-hmm.
But also surprisingly difficult. And this is kind of embarrassing as a creative writer as well. A person who's written a short story and published it. The short story was fine,
Mm-hmm.
but before each of the NPC stat blocks, I wanted them to be characters so that I can then write about them. And I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to not have a huge, long backstory for them. So I was like, I'm going to keep it to like 2, maybe 3 paragraphs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really hard to do that, actually. I'm not verbose when I'm writing. I meander, and then I have to cut it down. And it was hard to cut it down to just like 2 or 3 paragraphs for each of them.
I am sure that there are no fans of this channel who would accuse me of being verbose and going on unnecessary tangents. Right, guys? Right? No, totally understand you there. Um, all right. So you've mentioned that this is the first product in a line, and you've kind of talked about using future products to expand on the archetypes that you're developing. Can you talk a little bit more about some of the projects that are coming down the road? I realize that those are probably conceptual, but
Yeah, yeah.
what are your goals? What are you looking at creating? And what would your dream project be? I guess.
Right. So just for things that are sort of coming out in the short term, I do have further ones along this line. I've got one that I'm working on already, which is focusing on Erastil and Gozra in the Divinity Unbound line, because they're just the two that I decided. I just started with Erastil's Herald, and then I was like, I'll do the other nature deity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for that, I'm going to include a whole lot, like narrative stuff, fluff stuff, descriptions of like, holy like days and excerpts from the holy texts, which I'm going to have to, write based on what exists in the path or
Mm-hmm.
past Pathfinder entries,
Mm-hmm.
which is going to be very fun. But also stat blocks for the heralds and like notable servitors of the deities, items, mechanics for like holy sites. So I'm really excited about that. I'm also sort of in the process of my wife recently started running the beginner box for me and a couple of people at a game shop that we go to, because I've never played Pathfinder in person before.
Mm-hmm.
It was all online. So she was running for me, and I was reading through the player's book, and they have their little solo adventure in that, which is a little choose your own adventure style play Pathfinder thing. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, that's really cool, actually. So I've started, you know, outlining and conceptualizing some solo adventures that I could write and have published, because I think that's really fun. And it's not something that I'm like this. I really want to do well, because I want this to be a product that people really like to use, and they see this and they're like, I want to get the follow up books.
Mm-hmm.
But with these, I can be a little more experimental, and
Mm-hmm.
instead of having other people do the layout and all that stuff for me, I can use it to practice it myself. So I'm looking forward to writing and publishing some solo adventures in the future. As for my dream project, man, I don't know. Obviously, getting hired to write an AP book would be pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
I have got some experience writing D&D 5e adventures freelance, and I have written some one shots that I then ran for friends, and I think I'm pretty good at adventure design. So I think in terms of Pathfinder Infinite, it'd be really fun just to be able to write adventures. Though I think they're less popular than player options, so I've got to throw more of them in there too.
Player options are always the number one in
Yeah,
any
I
game.
mean, there's a reason that, well, there's many reasons that the Team Plus line is always like hottest products on Pathfinder Infinite, but the fact that they're player option doesn't
Mm-hmm.
hurt.
Okay. So the next question I wanted to ask, and this isn't necessarily about your products directly, but for for the people who are listening to this and they are interested into getting into writing for Pathfinder Infinite and for tabletop RPGs, what has your experience been working with the Pathfinder Infinite platform, and what advice would you give someone who's interested in getting started in this, like, how would you recommend somebody get that ball rolling?
Yeah, so for me, it wound up being a surprisingly easy process just because I really took my time. I just
Mm-hmm.
sort of lurked a lot in the Reddit and the Discord communities and learned a lot by osmosis. And also, my first product was a short story, which made things really simple. I just wrote it and then had somebody else do the layout work, and it's done, right? Post
Mm-hmm.
it. Um, but, in terms of advice,
Mm-hmm.
number one is the books or Archives of Nethys, if you prefer, are your best friend. If you want to make cool monsters, there are really good guidelines for building monsters in the Game Master's Guide. Just pick one of the suggested roadmaps, right? Follow the values on the tables. You're going to make a competent monster.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to make items, there's quite good guidelines for that. Not as detailed as the monsters, but they're still plenty good. In both cases, you also definitely want to have other eyes on them. You want to put it out there. Go to the Discord server for the Pathfinder 2e subreddit. Go to the subreddit. Go to the Pathfinder 2e creations subreddit. All very good resources, and I've never heard of anyone having their ideas stolen, so you don't have to worry about that. It's not the kind of thing that really happens.
Mm-hmm.
Just get other people looking at it, because my first foray into something that wasn't items or monsters was an archetype that I wrote for my blog, and I was just like, I'll give it a shot, because I was reading the old Underwater Adventures 1 ebook, and I was like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to make one that's focused on exploring and fighting underwater. Sounds like a fun project.
Mm-hmm.
And then I made one of I think the very first feat, the dedication. The main thing it was a class feat that let you not take penalties for using bludgeoning or slashing weapons underwater, which is one of the penalties for fighting underwater. And then I shared it with the community, and I was very promptly informed that there was a level 1 athletic skill feat that did exactly that. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's always good to have other eyes on your product.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and also to just read through all the existing content if you have the time.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of publishing on Infinite, it's, the publishing process for putting up a listing, there's guides for that. It's very, a little bit finicky, but mostly straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
If you just look up how to publish something on Drive Through RPG, even, because it's basically the same process, you'll find guides for that. But as for publishing on Infinite, I'll say that it's possible or even feasible, right, if you've got the free time, to be completely independent.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working on that myself, where I don't have to rely on anyone else. But even then, I think I'll still only do that some of the time, because it's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
If you want a good product, you need editing done. You need to find art or
Mm-hmm.
have it commissioned.
Mm-hmm.
You need to do the layout work. If you're doing player options, you probably need Foundry support, because a lot of people only buy your product if they can just import it quickly into their virtual tabletop of choice and build their characters there. So, and that's a lot of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're a great writer with a great grasp on the language, which I believe I am, I make mistakes, and other people will find them better than I can, because I know what I intended to write. My brain just fills it in for me. If you need art, you can find plenty of good art on Pathfinder Infinite. They've got their packs of community use art.
Okay.
There's also in the Pathfinder 2e Discord server like a folder in one of the Discord channels that someone's linked of their like enormous amount of Paizo art from the community content program, which you can just download and look through and use in your products. But the biggest thing advice that I can give right now, at least, I don't know if they'll have different plans for how they do things in the future, but getting in touch with someone from Eldritch Osiris Games. They're this group who are willing to assist you on basically everything that you need to do. For this project, for Divinity Unbound, I went with their highest tier of help, and so they edited for me. They had somebody read over it, look for any things that I may have just mistyped as a goof, or just also providing an eye for balance.
Mm-hmm.
They gave me additional art to go along with the art that I commissioned for this, and they did quite a good job of style matching on it. They laid everything out in the PDF, and they're also giving me Foundry support.
Awesome.
The thing about them, though, is I have basically no budget, and I assume a lot of newbies wouldn't either. They don't ask you for money up front. They just ask you for a cut of the sales. You get an email from the person who was doing the work. You put it into them as a royalty split for whatever percentage they ask for based on the tier that you went for, and
Mm-hmm.
it's done. They do the work for you. You get sales, and it's just a sign of like how supportive the community is in general. So that's my second biggest piece of advice if you want to publish here is also join the community
Mm-hmm.
because everyone there is just you may not agree with their takes, right?
Mm-hmm.
They may give you advice that you're like, no, I don't think so anyway. But they may give you advice that changes how you look at the product entirely.
Mm-hmm.
They may say something and you're like, oh, yeah, I could do that, and then all this stuff is opened up, and I can do all sorts of other things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just nice to be part of community. It helps keep you going. If it's just you sitting there at your computer and typing away and doing all your work and never interacting with anyone, I don't know about you, but I'd lose a lot of steam.
Yeah. I will say the community in and around Pathfinder has been consistently amazing. It's one
Yeah,
of, I started this channel because I was bored during the pandemic, and I keep doing this channel because the community is amazing.
yeah.
And I'm glad that you gave a shout out to Eldritch Osiris Games. I've only had a little bit of interaction with them, but you're right. They are fantastic people, and they are very supportive of the people they work with. And
Yeah, they're
I,
lifesavers. This would not be getting published if they didn't exist. Because I can't figure all this stuff out in a timely fashion.
Mhm. So, all right. So that kind of concludes all of the official questions that I have for you. But is there anything else you want us to know about who you are or what you're doing or what we can expect from you in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm a pretty good fiction writer, and I have gotten quite a few sales on my original short story, so I'm gonna be posting more of those.
Mm-hmm.
If you want some Pathfinder fiction and you've already read all the now sort of not supported Pathfinder Tales line, go give my stuff a look at that. I'm always happy to like that. Oh, you know what? That's my dream project for Pathfinder Tales to come back and me to be able to write for it. That'd be amazing. But yeah, just anyone who's watching this who is interested in reading fiction, all of my stuff's going to have fiction in it, even if it's just a short story at the very end. Uh, go look at it for that reason alone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as far as just more about me, I mean, I'm gonna be active in the community. So if you like what you see in Divinity Unbound, and you want to come say hi and hey, I liked your stuff, or if you have, hey, I was wondering if you were going to do this. I might. I'm willing to give some people who are curious a little look beneath the hood and see what's coming up next. So just ask. I like talking to people. I like sharing. I like being friendly with people.
Mm-hmm. Well, that leads into my next question. How can people find you on socials if they want to connect with you? How should they?
Uh, I have a blog, which is sustainaspell.wordpress.com. That's the sort of just branding I went with Sustain a Spell because I was like, I need a punchy little name.
Mm-hmm.
And for the most part, I'm just publishing under Nicholas Potter anyway, so oh well.
All right.
But you can also find me on Twitter at Spell Sustain. Those are the two like social media things that like you can follow me at, I guess. I'm also very active, mostly reading, but sometimes commenting in the Pathfinder 2e subreddit.
Okay.
Fairly active in the Pathfinder 2e Discord.
Mm-hmm.
So you can also find me there if you wanted to drop by and chat.
All right. Well, I will be throwing links to all of that in the video description. So, to anybody watching this who wants to check out his blog or any of the other stuff that he's doing, all of those links will be down there. So, I highly encourage you to do that. But, Nick, thank you so much for being here today. And thank you so much.
Thank you for having me and uh, suffering through my technical issues.
So, one last time, it is Divinity Unbound Paths of Faith, which will be releasing July the 1st, which should be the weekend after this video goes live, and it'll be on Pathfinder Infinite. Did I get all that correct?
Yep.
All right. So I strongly encourage everybody watching this to go check that out, and while you're at it, check out Nick's other social media stuff that he's doing. But Nick, thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for this conversation today.
It was my pleasure.